If you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream. Everyone likes the ice cream man.
Yeah.
Right? I hire people to do the things that I hate doing. That I don't like to do. It's not a good use of my time. I'd rather put it into something else. And, they'll do just as good a job as me. In that.
Or better, because, you don't have skill sets for every area.
And that's just, it leads me to the second thing. And then I hire people that are better than me at a particular task and role.
This is something that I'm sure is going to be one of our podcasts that will get a lot of traction, especially because this is a very important discussion.
It's good to be able to have these kind of conversations, not vying for any political spots and things like that, because most times you can't tell.
Are you trying to throw a rock at me?
No, absolutely not. I leave the politics to
because
politicians.
I ain't in politics no more,
I know. We can see you on face.
Good day, everybody. We want to welcome you to this, our fourth episode of Season 2 of the Butler Legacy Podcast. Loretto, it has been exciting.
It has been really exciting, frankly, and it's always good to be here to have our new guests come in and chat with us on the purpose of what the Legacy Podcast is all about. And just to remind our guests, we started this so that we can talk about families and generational businesses, and we figured that it's really important that people get a perspective on what's going on with Bahamian businesses and generational business, and how people are not only creating wealth, but creating succession for their businesses. So we're very happy to recap again, and of course, to thank the Butler Legacy Foundation for sponsoring these podcasts, along with Bahamar and the Echo Gallery here, which is always a phenomenal setting.
It is always lovely to be here. Our guest today said this was his first time, I think, actually coming to the setting. And it's just a wonderful place for us to have this podcast.
It's so beautiful because it actually, I think, engages our guests as they arrive, but it also gets us to be even more creative on the set. So we love it, and we thank Bahamar for allowing us to use this special space.
So, Laurie, without further ado, I want to welcome our guest, who is a friend, a former schoolmate of mine, now got big titles like His Excellency. But I want to say that despite the title, what I know about our guest today is someone who has always been on the edge. Growing up in school, I was describing on set before that never what I call a violent person anyway, but always probably a little bit mischievous.
A disruptor.
Always pushing the boundaries. Always found himself in the principal office. Him and another good friend of his who works with him now. I find it amazing to see them two together, because I feel like them two was always in trouble in the principal's office. But I want to talk about it, because I think our guest today has really demonstrated to not just take that disruption in the context of schooling and education, but even in everything he does as an entrepreneur, as an investor. He's in so many different areas in our economy now, just doing an incredible work. I want to have you join me in welcoming.
Don't say yet. Let's keep our audience on the edge. This is exciting. You're saying His Excellency. He's an ambassador appointed by 2 Bahamian governments.
That's correct.
And that's important.
That's correct.
So he's made a remarkable impression straight across our society. But most importantly, while he was a disruptor, he was not a destructor, was he?
No, he wasn't. No, He wasn't. Never a destructor.
Okay, so I want you to go ahead and welcome your special friend.
His Excellency, Sebas Bastian.
Wow. I know everyone's going to be excited. They're going to be on the edges of their seat. They want to hear what he has to say, what nuggets of knowledge he wants to share with us. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador Sebas Bastian. Thank you very much for being with us.
Good morning, and thank you both for having me. Franklin, a long time friend. If you go back to, I think 1984 is probably when I met this guy, when I set foot on Xavier's College back in those days. And, it was the pretty pink building opposite the ocean. And we had some extraordinary memories that were made down there at that good Catholic institution.
I'm sure that much of what they would have instilled in you would have compounded what your parents would have instilled in you, and keeps you very humble, sir, for all of the achievements that you've accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know. I watched my mother, and father, really sacrifice to send me to a private school like Xavier's, and it wasn't easy for them, but they made it happen, and I'm fortunate to have that good foundational education, and it was not just the education that I'm now still benefiting from today. It's the network, meeting people like Franklin way back then, and I mean the list goes on to the amount of persons that we started in the 80s, and today we're still dialoguing or networking or doing business together. We can pick up the phone and call each other and really assist in any needs that we may have.
I like that. I like that. That means that friendship is at the basis of this as well.
No question. Now I ain't sure I ain't sure I make the top 10 these days, because this fella is such a mover and shaker in his world, right? I mean, Sebas is not only doing stuff domestically, and I want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey, Sebas, but he's doing so many things internationally that hopefully we get to touch in this conversation. But Sebas, I want to go back to high school, primary school, and in primary school, I don't know you so much to be an entrepreneur, because I think you were probably still finding your way. But talk about how your entrepreneurship journey started, right?
Started when I was 7 years old. I don't know if it was for punishment or I was actually my father's favorite child, but every Saturday I had to go to the Lincoln Boulevard and Cordova Avenue, Smiley's Four-Way Inn, which was his restaurant and bar, home of the $6.99 steak. And while all...
Please repeat that again. The what?
Home of the $6.99 steak.
You mean like $6.99?
Yes, absolutely.
For a steak?
Yes.
Oh my God. Wait.
You was too privileged. You wouldn't know nothing about that.
No. That is amazing.
Yeah. It was cheaper than Milo Butler was selling that steak for sure.
See, you see this? Yeah. I did not know this. This is amazing. Please. And in the heart of Englerston, Cordova Avenue and Lincoln Boulevard.
Yeah.
Tell us more about this.
I think, I always found it interesting because obviously at that point, he could have taken that idea and that business anywhere. For whatever reason, he chose Englerston to be the stumping ground for that business. And I think he was able to leverage, he's working at City Market Winn-Dixie at the time as their senior accountant. And I think he leveraged his employee discount and parlayed it into a business. So I think he was buying steaks, good cut of steaks at a very significant discounted price.
Wow.
And he turned it into a business and dragged me along for the ride. So, while all of my friends were going to the Red Cross Fair and St. John's Mardi Gras or just playing shooting marbles or whatever we did back then, certainly there were no iPads and internet. So we had a lot more fun than I think kids do
And you
today.
were more productive.
Definitely. So I had to go to Lincoln Boulevard and Cordova Avenue and be covered in barbecue sauce and smoke but that's what I did. But it was good because it taught me at a very young age budgeting, entrepreneurship, responsibility, discipline, showing up, which is one of the biggest traits most people lack today. And I think that foundational kind of upbringing. And he didn't become super rich or super successful from that business. I think it was a side hustle that he was able to use to consolidate with his primary income, and then he was able to provide for his family as a result of that. So, I learned so much small lessons and business fundamentals that I still apply today, back of the napkin principles that I still employ today in my the various businesses. So imagine being 8, 9 years old, and I used to have to come and wrap napkins and forks.
Yeah.
And knife, forks, and napkin, and wrap them and twist the end. And
that's right.
It was, and
that's right. And there was a technique to that as well.
Well, it was just hard labor, and it was boring, and I hated doing it.
But you were working.
I was working. So I remember one day I thought that I had found an ingenious way of doing that. I was visiting a restaurant, and they had a prepackaged knife, fork, napkin, salt, and pepper. So I took one with me, and that Saturday I brought it to the restaurant, and I said,
"Get these done.
We doing this the hard way. We need to get some of this." Aww. And I gave my whole spiel on it. And then he sat me down And he said, how much are these costs? And it was, I think, I don't remember the exact price, but it was X amount for 200 pieces. And when he did the division for me and he showed me what we were paying for a piece if we went that route versus getting the 1,000 count knife, the 1,000 count forks, and the 1,000 count napkins and rewrapping it. And when you look at the unit cost, there was a big disparity.
Yeah.
So those types of fundamental kind of lessons and, I was able to, build on that as the years come. So you look at those things now and you're able to dissect budgeting and forecasting in such a way because the math makes sense to you because it's not soup is natural. Right?
I want to pivot back to that because there were several lessons in that, Franklin. First of all, Mr. Bastian, the father of Sebas Bastian, was employed by the leading supermarket chain in the Bahamas as an accountant.
Yep.
He had a very good job, considering all things, but he did not sit on his laurels. He knew that he needed to make more money to become a greater success. So in addition to taking his job seriously, he started using his money to invest in himself and his family. But not only that, he taught his son a valuable lesson of sweat equity versus convenience.
Yep. And listen, I would imagine Sebas may not have been born into a economic dynasty at that time.
Far from it.
However, the fact that his father was intentional about bringing him along. Talk a little bit more to us, Sebas, around what that has done for you and how, because, Loretta and I always talk about this idea of generational wealth, right? And people always want to know, how do you create this thing? But I tell people, we grew up, I guess people say is maybe an economic dynasty, but I'll tell you one thing. Like you, I wasn't going to Mardi Gras and Red Cross Fair. Every Saturday we had to be in the shop. We had to be packing groceries. We was learning the business from back then.
Yep.
And the same kind of lessons your daddy was teaching you. I tell people that's how you do the dynasty. Teach your children how to wake.
It's the same. It's the same lesson in a different business.
I want to go to one thing before we move on. How many times you were suspended from various schools?
All right, let's see. I didn't get suspended at Xavier, so I was a good holy child back then. We got in trouble a bit, but no suspensions. In SAC, I think twice. In Bahamas Academy, twice within the first 6 months of going there. But those were they didn't understand me. I was like I said, I was a disruptor of the status quo. I think my suspensions in my SAC days was because I was always buying and selling things on campus. I had a big candy shop running. I had a hat business kind of running. And, I also was really got along well with the school nurse. So I knew how to professionally play sick. So it was that too. Wasn't really wasn't a overachiever in terms when it came to the books. In fact, I can laugh about it and I'm proud of it now. My grade point average in my first year of school was 1.42.
1.42
in the 7th grade. So obviously I repeated grade 7. I think one of the most embarrassing moments of my life to this date is reporting back to school the following year and lining up with the grade 7 students while my friends Lejar and the rest of the crew was going in grade 8. I think I purposely came late that day so that I could just, be at the back of the line. But all of that, I think all that played a pivotal role. It made me try harder.
Yep.
The embarrassment made me work harder to not be embarrassed again.
Amen.
So that played a very pivotal role. There was, it was just that I was always kind of a contrarian. If I'm interested in something, I'm going to put all the effort in. But if it don't make sense to me, I'm just not interested. And I think it's about what I think Albert Einstein said it once. And, if you judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, he'll always think he's an idiot. And I think, the system had that type of philosophy. In order for me to be considered an honor roll student or a great student, I had to be great at things that I had no interest in. Geography and history and all that kind of stuff. I was average in that. Listen, I think there's a great deal of importance of knowing your history and the geography. And once you've gotten that, kind of surface level stuff, I tend to not want to go beyond that unless necessary. Hence why I haven't talked about Columbus from the day
You left school.
you left school,
Yeah.
right? And I have an appreciation for the role he played, and the jury is out on whether that's a positive role or a negative role. And I understand the story behind it, but I don't think I needed to go beyond that story. And if I ever wanted to do that, there's enough information back
That's
then,
right.
encyclopedias, and now today Google, where I can take that knowledge to the next level. But one of my pet peeves in terms of the educational system, it's not what they're teaching us, because all forms of education, we can find some merit and value. It's what they're not teaching us that is the problem. With limited hours in the school day, how does one decide what is more beneficial for this child's advancement into the real world?
Yep.
Or what is just kind of the cookie cutter kind of same old traditional format?
I think you're seeing a huge shift, maybe a little more slowly in the government school curriculum, but certainly in the private sector, you're seeing where kids are being encouraged to be critical thinkers, to be inquirers, to probably go out, research, and do things on their own. Obviously, back in the day, maybe also in your day as well, it was more about regurgitating what was taught to you,
For sure.
such as your geography, your history, and so on and so forth. But I think that also with the onset of technology, the information highway, and everything, people are realizing that any information you need to come up with, it's at your fingertips. So we don't necessarily have to retain that unless it's for our practical use and application in what we're doing, which is exactly what you're saying. But I wanted to double back just a little bit because, when we started this podcast, we obviously started it based on the life of Sir Milo, our grandfather. And, it was not easy for him. He was not an educated person, or when I say educated in terms of going away and having university degrees and all these other things that many people boast of today, but he became a success in his own right. I don't know what you know about Sir Milo, but obviously there are parallels in your lives in that you started peddling or selling things that people wanted at a very early age. You saw a void that needed to be met, which Sir Milo did. Do you see any parallels that you can take away from the lessons of a Sir Milo?
Well, it's interesting you say that because, like I was saying about the parts of the history and things that I find interesting and things I don't. The story of Sir Milo definitely was taught in school, so I have that fundamentals. I know he was the first Bahamian Governor General. I think he was very instrumental I know that he was very instrumental in our quest towards kind of independence. And we don't, many of us in the new generation, and even parts of mine, obviously our parents, their realities and the things that they faced and experienced was a direct kind of thing that he was fighting for. Simple things like women's rights, equalities, and being able to access the things that others were able to access and they weren't. And we are the inherent beneficiaries of that hard work, like persons like Sir Milo and Sir Lyndon Pinland would have done. And we wake up in the morning and we tend to forget that there was a time in our history when you couldn't just walk into this building.
That is true.
But when I was born, I could have walked into this building.
That's true.
Right. So, you have to always, just have a consciousness to realize that if you listen to the stories, and you don't have to go far, because this wasn't that long ago.
That's true.
You know what I mean? This isn't something like where we're talking 200 years of slavery. We're talking, this was like 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
Just over 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
I have many persons in my family that are still alive, that are past the age of 50, that had the full brunt of this. And you hear the stories all the time. So, I think when we go out and enjoy the simple things of access to healthcare and educational systems and the right to vote and, being able to just walk in any place that we see fit, those are the work of the back of persons like Sir Milo Butler.
But you yourself, Mr. Bastian, one of the things that you actually did was, I guess what many of Franklin and those would have done as well. You used your time in school to parlay income for yourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We did that, for sure. I mean, oh man, I used to even run a gambling game in school.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Oh my
yeah.
God.
Unlicensed and unregulated.
Yeah. It's friendly fire, I call it. We would at lunchtime we would all go in the boys' bathroom, and I would have a pocket full of quarters to exchange the dollar bills, and you would just throw a quarter against the wall, and the closest quarter to the wall picked up all the quarters, and I got 1 quarter for my services for putting on the game.
What was that called?
It's just called closest to the wall. That's all it was called.
See, you just taught me something I never knew about this.
Yeah,
Closest to the wall?
Yeah, we didn't allow girls in the bathroom.
No.
So that was the quickest way to get catch. So we did. It was unfortunately it was a men's only game.
Really?
Because it was held in the bathroom.
That's what you guys were doing in the bathroom?
Yeah, that's what we were doing in the bathroom.
Man, those girls must have thought y'all were in there doing...
Listen, I sure y'all spent so much time in the bathroom. Y'all didn't miss us. Trust me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting because I've never heard of that game, but you were making money off that just because you were facilitating it.
Absolutely.
But tell me then, so, oh God, this is amazing. So there was this whole evolvement into being the largest game house in the Bahamas was not just, this was intentional.
I guess you can say that. I mean, and going back to your previous question about the contrast between, I think, what Samilo did back then and kind of my life, it's I grew up in in an era of similar kind of issues within our country. They dealt with probably kind of the race side of it all, and my generation dealt with the economic.
Tell us about this. Come on, we want to hear about this.
When you look at, when I was born in 1980, and by the time I became an entrepreneur in my early teens, you looked around and there was not a lot of opportunities available. No fault to anyone else, but all of the major industries were already dominated, monopolized, and that's the way it was. So we had a system that preached entrepreneurship. There was no access. There was no body or program that facilitate funding. There was no. They certainly don't teach you the fundamentals and the ingredients one needs to be a successful entrepreneur. The average student can't read or write a P&L or a forecast or navigate them way around Excel. And today we still preach entrepreneurship, but the school system does not support the curriculum that actually gives one.
Unless, of course, you get into programs which we shouldn't overlook, like junior achievement and things like
Absolutely.
that, which are extracurricular.
Absolutely.
And, obviously, they have been fundamental in helping a lot of persons within the school system outside of the curriculum to start to develop business skills.
Correct. Agreed with that. And, so when I was first started out, I identified very early on that, God chose me, and for whatever reason, and He were going to use me as a vehicle to do whatever it was that I could to disrupt the status quo in whatever way He felt fit, and you saw that disruption across many industries, particularly in real estate. When I remember. When we decided one of the first real estate developments I did was for sale was this condos in West Ridge, Hampton Ridge. Yeah. And I remember one of our strategies behind that was making the West affordable for Bahamians at that time. And, we hit a home run with it, sold out in like 14 days or whatever.
Awesome.
And That's
amazing.
I want to replicate that same strategy, so we ended up doing the property right next door. Got the same result. Went next door again. Got the same result. So that would have been.
So basically, you were capitalizing on land use, but giving each family an opportunity to own a home. You were basically
not just own a home, but owning a home in an area that they were priced out of historically.
Absolutely.
So. With that information and that data that I had on why that product was successful and the appetite that many Bahamians had for the product. And so when we doubled down and we did projects like Venetian West, which was like what we had done before, but on a much larger scale, you know, that was 210 homes. One of the interesting things, the unspoken things about Venetian West, you look at it now and you just see, oh, it's a nice development. A lot of Bahamians were able to capitalize and buy and then get in there at a good price. And now they enjoy, you know, double the equity appreciation on which they bought for and what they think of now. But what they don't see in the background is when I was approached to acquire the land for Venetian West, they had seen what we had done in the West Ridge, and they wanted us to bring that product to the West. I won't call any names, but we were told that you know, we as a part of it, they would like to see the plans that we were going to develop and all that, and we submitted that. They loved the plans. It fit right into one of the reasons why we were solicited in the first place, and it was all systems go. The roadblock that was in the background that people didn't see was that they were concerned about the price point. And the price point concern was they felt that the price point would bring a demographic to the West that I guess didn't meet the ideology of what the West was at the time.
Now, I want to interpret that, and let's put that in layman's terms.
Yeah, please do, Loretta.
Because, you know, the reality of what he is saying is very important. And I want to also come back to find out, you know, where the initial, how, you know, funding would have come for, you know, his, because when people think of the Sebas's of the world, they think primarily on island luck.
Yep.
And, you know, we've got to show the dimensions in this, but the demographics that he is talking about, and, you know, I like to be right to the point.
Go ahead.
In other words, you bring in these Black people out here into this sort of high-end community. We're not sure this is what you want. Can you raise that price point so we can have more elite people here? I think that is what you're
That's exactly what
you know. So let's not talk around.
Well,
this.
that's how they crypted it to me. That's how they were trying to say it to me in so many words. So I just regurgitated how they were presenting it. They were, you know,
So I want to say, you see, when we talk about building generational wealth, Franklin, or giving Bahamians opportunities. You know, I get excited when I see small entrepreneurs, the underdogs, doing well. And so for home ownership, which is so elusive to people, even of our color,
for sure,
in this country, you know, to be able to take prime real estate and capitalize on the space by building upward and using multifamily homes in that space, but yet giving people the pride of having a beautiful property is so important. And being able to make it affordable to anyone. And I'm not saying that these developments are just for Black people.
Yep.
Because I'm saying it must be accessible in this Bahamas for all people.
That's the fact.
Absolutely. And, you know, it goes on beyond that. And I think back at it,
I want to commend you for that, because I think it is so important as we build this nation in our 51st year, post-independence. We have got to also give that sort of hope, that thrust for every Bahamian, Mr. Bastian. I know people call you Sebas, but I'm going to call you Mr. Bastian because you know what? You're doing what we need to do to develop this country, to move it on. I want to see some of these projects move to some of our family islands. I'm going to encourage you in that because Nassau is totally overpopulated. But what you're doing is you're contributing, as you said, in a different way to the economic development of our country. When Sir Milo and Sir Lyndon and Sir A.D. Hanna and all of those men fought for us to just be able to access, we're now fighting to make sure that more people have the economic freedom to
do what they have to do.
Absolutely.
I coined that. Everything you said is coined as economic democracy.
Yep.
Basically. And,
well said.
And that's how I coined that. And listen, it even got worse. Back then, this was in 2012, the banks collectively came together and decided that they were not going to provide construction financing, nor financing for anyone that would buy in the Venetian West.
Really?
Absolutely. That's what they colluded and did.
So you
I'm not sitting
basically
here.
you basically had to create to make this happen because there's some
In-house
things you're
financing.
saying that, and yet there's some things you're not saying. And I want to pull this out of you, sir. I want to pull this out because I want the audience to know what you're truly about and what you're doing. What you're saying to me essentially then is in the absence of people being able to access this through financial institutions, the normal financial institutions,
You had to create a way.
then had to self-finance for these people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You became the bank.
Basically. So, and listen, I'm not sitting here in the victim role. It was I thank them for what they did back then, because what it did, it forced me into another side of business that I didn't intend it to be in, when I got into the lease to owns and the lending side of it, which today we still offer that as a service and product in our offering. It's I can never sit here and play the victim mentality, because it fueled me, and it fueled our organization to be.
You learned from your lesson.
Yeah, we pivoted and we made it happen irrespective to that, and eventually all of that subsided. And I don't think it subsided because it was change of heart.
No, you know why it subsided?
They could do nothing without. They could do nothing with it.
No, I'm going to tell you why it subsided. The reality is there's money to be made in financing.
Yep.
Banks are in the business of making money.
Agree.
So, here you are, you put a man or a woman's back against the wall. They use that and become very agile, create an environment where, okay, I'm coming out of this cage where you've put me. Now he's making the money the banks want to be making.
Absolutely.
They didn't do it because they thought he was, doing something great. They did it because they wanted to share in the interest. And, I think for me, I want this story to be told because sometimes in some circles, you hear the negativity of why these Black boys. And, I'm free because I don't care about color. I think Bahamians are Bahamians. It doesn't matter whether we're white, brown, Black, whatever. But I'm going to tell you in the vernacular in which it's spoken that, these Black boys have the monopoly on these local casinos.
Yep.
And we don't know what they're doing. With
And now
all
they're
this money,
entitled. I'm not recognizing.
For one to have that mindset, we would have to overlook the monopolies the historical monopolies that we've met in place that crosses from banking to car dealerships to insurance
Real
to
estate.
food to real estate. How much time do you have? I can name them forever. In fact, the only thing that was not monopolized was the domestic gaming industry. And I remember vividly, because it's been 11 years now, 10 years now since regulations have been passed. People don't realize how long ago that whole process was. And I remember the doom and gloom about how it's going to bring the financial system down and what it's going to do and all that. They have more problems than the people that come fly here on these jets and they give all these funny licenses to. And, you have the FTXs of the world and all. They have more problems from people like that. There's not been one material incident in gaming since regulation. Not one.
Yeah.
Not one.
Well,
Sebas.
while I'm singing your praises, sir, and I absolutely applaud you. And my position. I was in politics back then. You knew my position. We spoke at length on several occasions with regards to gaming. I was not a pro gamer. I'm not a personal gamer myself, but the reality is this. It has been successful. I'm sure it would have helped a lot of people along the way. But I also want you to come back, if you will, just a little bit, to talk about the referendum, but also to talk about there are dark sides to gambling.
Absolutely.
There are very dark sides to gambling. And I don't want to sit here and pretend that all is honky-dory because there are people that become, just as they do, addicted to other negative behaviors.
Drugs, alcohol.
Gambling can be very addictive as well.
Absolutely.
So I want you to speak to those issues for us, please.
And really, what you're doing from an industry to make this thing conscious capital.
Absolutely. So, by regulation, obviously, we are regulated and required to have what they call kind of a self-exclusion list, and where people can self-exclude, not online. They can go and set limits. They can self-exclude. That information is in a network, so they couldn't self-exclude from us and then go to kind of another gaming.
competitor.
The gaming board also has access, direct real-time access to all of our systems.
What is self-exclude? I'm sorry. Please tell me
Self-excluding
what
when
that
somebody
means.
can say, you know what, I want to exclude myself from gaming with your company because I have a problem. Like they can actually initiate that on the web right now, and if they did that and they hit enter, their account is blocked. And they can't reopen an account, not just with us. They can't reopen an account with any gaming organization as well. The gaming board also has real-time data feeds into all of our systems, so they themselves too can look at the transactions of any patron at any time, and they can decide as well that this person needs to be
have intervention,
or blocked or whatever like that. So it's kind of a dual thing there. We also sponsor the symposium every year down at Sunderland's, not just for gambling but for alcoholism and all that as well. So, and then we run a lot of responsible gambling campaigns, because for us, we don't want that type of gambler. We don't want somebody that's spending school fees and funds that are for
So you mean
reasons.
I'm not going to get rich overnight by coming and spending all my money at Island Luck or some other game house? I want to get rich overnight, man. Come on, you're all talking about creating wealth. I want to get rich. Why can't I come spend all my money at your gambling house?
You won't get rich overnight, but if you
want to get rich overnight.
There's no overnight richness.
Okay.
So
I want you to
if you have discipline and you allot funds, disposable funds that you can afford to game with, I mean, there is an entertainment factor to it, and there are people that win money all the time. I mean, we've changed a lot of lives in the time frame that we've been in business. So there is a fun and winning element to it as well, but it has to be done responsibly. But just like everything else, I mean, we it's convenient to carve that out and think that that's the only thing that destroys us. Alcoholism destroys way more lives and way more things than gambling ever will. We know that, but for some reason we as citizens we like to cherry pick the vices, and I'm all for doing things responsible and making sure that, but I also don't like the hypocrisy where it's highlighted on this and only this is what's destroying Bahamians, but we had persons that had a problem with domestic gaming. But they would come and have conventions and all sorts of things in this very same type of casinos. I mean, buildings that make most of their money off in gaming, right? And we have no issue. We have no issue with that. So, if we're gonna have a conversation about gambling and things like that, why let's have a holistic conversation? We want to cut out gambling. Let's cut out the two land-based casinos and all the domestic gambling, and just do it all in one shot. But we don't get to discriminate in that kind of fashion where foreigners can come and set up thing gaming and demonize domestic gaming operators. I mean, that's just hypocrisy.
This is a really powerful discussion today, and I'm so glad that we're touching on those those hot button topics that people talk about behind your back or behind the backs of the people that own the local gaming houses.
Agreed.
There's not one person that's against gaming that is not sat up in Atlantis or Bahama and that thrive on the existence of casino and gaming.
Yeah, agreed.
Not one.
Agreed.
And not saying that there's something right or wrong with that, but I'm just highlighting the hypocrisy in the argument. There's not one of those persons that came as vicious and thingam as they did against domestic gaming, but they're okay with the existence of foreign-owned gaming.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how we got where we are as a people for so long, where what's good for the goose is never good for the gander, and we have this kind of subjective concern.
This is something that I'm sure is going to be one of our podcasts that will get a lot of traction, especially because this is a very important discussion. We thank you very much for sharing with us.
I think this is really what our audience really wants to hear about.
When I look at young men like you and Sebas and hear the fascinating steps and sort of developments that you guys have done, I think that these are the people that we're actually speaking to. I always remind you, I'm a generation older than you are. But yes, this is absolutely fascinating. Yeah. And thank you, Franklin, for bringing Mr. Bastian on.
His Excellency, You go from selling a $6.99 steak to building Hampton Ridge. You started to talk about who were some of the mentors. How did you go from selling a $6.99 steak, figuring out the cost of cutlery sets, to going to build Hampton Ridge? Where was the mindset developed for that?
Well, the answer is going to be a little bit unconventional, right? I'm not saying that I didn't have any mentors in my life, but I think my mentorship were my guiding principles, right? Before one can mentor you, you also need to possess certain ingredients that prepares you for success, and give you the wherewithal to pivot when faced with adversities, etc. I possessed my mentor, my father. He instilled a lot of discipline in me. Without discipline, you're done. You're just wasting time and you're spinning tires. You have to have the discipline it requires to make the necessary sacrifices that entrepreneurship requires, to be able to, say no when need to be able to show up, to be able to put in the effort. I mean, it's then, you gotta have the drive. I mean, first of all, you have to have drive. I like a lot of people. I have this thing on the wall I put in almost all our organizations. Ideas are meaningless without execution.
Yeah.
And that's a byproduct of drive. I mean, this, if you've seen it even in political realms, some people that can execute but no vision. Some people have vision and no execution. And I think that's
about help me understand. You saying discipline, you saying execution, but you was a fellow who dropped out of university to go to become an entrepreneur. I mean, help me, like, this discipline in the context of us, people don't understand that. And I want our audience to get a sense that, listen, when you talk about discipline, you ain't talking about conventional discipline.
Yeah, I'm talking about being born in a house where I saw my mother struggle. I have a single family home. She was able to make ends meet and provide for me, but I saw her sell Easter baskets, bake cakes on the side, had a mom and pop shop to make money. I was exposed to the hustle.
Yeah.
Right. Not hustling on the streets. The hustle is in terms of,
How do you make ends meet?
I'll pull an excerpt out of a book that I'm writing, right? There's so many Bahamians that, we have power issues. There's no question in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
We have power issues and power goes off. The power don't go off that much to it's to the point where it's unbearable. I mean, we have some outages. And for the little pockets of time throughout the year that power goes off, many of us have made a very significant investment in buying a backup generator.
Right.
To the tune of $50,000, an investment just so that we don't have 20, 30 minutes without some power, right? When you correlate that on how persons don't provide a economic backup generator to their own life, meaning a second source of income.
Yeah.
Everybody's hanging on by a thread. If their professional relationship with their employer changes, the power goes out.
Lifestyle's finished.
Lifestyle's finished, right? So what I saw, my parents, they had an economic backup generator, right? And I think a lot of people ignore that and how necessary that is. We all need second sources of income. You don't necessarily need to be this super ardent entrepreneur, but everybody's good at something.
Yep.
And whatever it is that you're interested in and you're good at, turn that into your second source of income. Not only that will fuel your life and when faced with any kind of unforeseen changes in your primary income, but it also provides you working capital to pursue an entrepreneurial quest, provides you another source of income that gives you the ability to borrow from the bank. I think one of the misconceptions people have with the banks, and I used to be one of those people, like the banks are not here to fund your aspirational dreams.
Yeah.
Banks are here to lend money against cash flow secured by an asset.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So nobody's here to take a risk with you, and they shouldn't. They're in business. Yep. So what we need to do as a people is try to expand our income through side hustles. And to do that, one would say, well, then how do I know what to get into? Well, exposure. As busy as I am, and as all that I got going on, I still took the time and went to China for a month.
Yeah.
Why? Because the next big idea, the next thing that I may want to get into or expand to or whatever, will not come looking for me, because ideas and innovation can't walk.
Yep.
You have to go and put yourself in the environment to see it. So for 30 days, almost 30 days, I was not distracted with personal family life. I wasn't distracted
you couldn't
with work.
be, because you ain't got no social platform in China. So you basically shut off.
Right. So you have 3 to 4 weeks of just being inundated with ideas and new things
and hard workers
and hard workers.
And
Absolutely.
you talked about discipline,
Yep.
and probably one of the best places to go to see discipline firsthand.
Yeah.
But you know what? I want to go back, because this whole thing of being able to turn a hobby or create a second income, a stream of income to give you that backup generation that you want. We saw it, Franklin.
Side hustle.
Wait, not only that, we saw it during COVID.
No question.
When a lot of traditional businesses literally closed down, and people had to become more resourceful. What do we have now here in the Bahamas? We have entrepreneurs that are delivering things 24/7, making their own money, that they've created out of adversity.
Absolutely.
Out of loss at that time. But, I think also most importantly, you talk about discipline. People see, I'm sure you have followers on your social platforms, Mr. Bastian. You post these amazing trips or wherever you are. What they don't see, which I'd like for you to talk about, I mean, I've had the pleasure, and I don't even know if Franklin knows this, I've had the pleasure of coming to your home one evening and actually seeing you cooking the meal.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Chef.
What he learned under his father.
Ah.
He was flipping those steaks. I don't think there was the $6.99 one.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think there probably was some Wagyu.
Hopefully you get them from fresh
But,
markets, but,
but,
we leave
but,
them alone.
but the reality is, see, the perception is, oh, this man has got so much money. Now he's not doing anything. I want you to speak also, because this is discipline.
Yeah.
People think that once you have become successful, you stop working.
Yeah,
so I want you to speak to that. I want you to also speak to the fact that, you're a hands-on individual that does things for himself. There are not servants feeding you with silver spoons and golden. I mean, I don't think so. I mean,
No.
unless you were trying to show me that you could cook.
Yeah, I was just trying to impress you, but for me, I'm still a guy that loves my tuna and grits in the morning and a sauce from Murray's. So never really lost my grounded appeal for the local cuisine, but it's a lot of work. I mean, I have 2,000 employees across my group of companies, and I don't get to quit. I don't get to stop and slow down and turn off. Not because I have this super successful discipline and drive. Not just that. It's because I now have too many families dependent on me. I no longer can be complacent. If I want to be complacent, then I need to just divest and let somebody else that's not complacent take over, because there's too many families and that depend on our organizations to put food on their table and things like that. So every morning, my morning starts out with a workout, and then you check the emails, and then you get going. I think a lot of the success that I've amalgamated over the years is, building a good team. It starts with that.
For sure.
You look at the man and you say, well, he's doing this, he's doing that. But I mean, I could not do half the stuff I've done without the team that I've
Absolutely,
I've
the
created.
team effort.
Absolutely. I mean, early on in my early days, I was the one
You were doing
band,
everything.
and I was, pretty successful at it. But it's not scalable. If you want to go to the next frontier in your organization or in your professional life or whatever, that you're gonna have to get yourself a competent team. And when somebody is, and there's two ways that I look at this. How I pick team members. One is it's about my philosophy on delegation. Right.
Yeah.
It's I hire people to do the things that I hate doing.
Yeah.
I don't like to do. And it's not a good use of my time. I rather put it into something else, and they'll do just as good a job as me in that.
Or better, because
better, yeah.
you don't have skill sets for
Yeah.
every area.
And that's just, it leads me to the second thing. And then I hire people that are better than me at a particular task and role. And there's not enough humility across most organizations. I think from CEO level, there are people in my organization that are better than me in certain areas. And you have to let the best and the brightest
do what
it is that they're good at. And that's the two, how I choose how would I delegate. Things that I don't like to do, or things where other persons are better than me.
Absolutely.
That frees up my time.
Franklin, that speaks to every person's success. I'm going to tell you, your biggest downfall is when you don't know what your weaknesses are.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
You know, you must introspect, whether you're going to be an entrepreneur, and determine, you know what, I've got these 5 fingers. This is the one that I'm best at because this is my strongest digit. But, I need help to bring these other ones up. Yeah. That is important. That is absolutely important.
No question. And I think Sebastian is very much like me. We love we become fascinated with the idea and the vision and the strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We need the executionist, man.
Yeah.
We could go find the relationships to go. I tell people, I'll pick up the phone and call anybody in the world. I suggest that's why Sebastian in China. You get to meet people, and before you know it, what you thought was an idea, someone then take the next step. Step 1 for execution. Step 2 for execution. Yep. So before you're done, you got 5 steps to execution. And when you think you're experimenting, somebody jumping on board and saying, "Boss, I got this."
Yep. But with us, and I'm speaking about our family in particular, one of the things that why we brought this legacy podcast was because we also wanted to showcase relationships in families and how families can help you to build these legacies. I want you I want Sebas more particularly to speak to us because sometimes when you begin to build success, there are family members that are either with you or against you for whatever reason.
Or partners.
Or partners. Tell us about integration, because you came up in an environment where your father imparted a lot to you, your mother imparted a lot to you. I don't know your family structure in terms of your siblings and, others, but is family a part of your corporate structure? Is it a part of your company? I mean, can you speak to us about that?
It's on a case by case basis. I have I've been let down probably more by persons closest and related to me than I had from strangers. Yeah. That's a fact. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I don't have remarkable family members that work within my organization, because I do. And I think what I've had to learn to do, because you could imagine the road to success has not been an easy one. There were no doors open for me. There was no bridge built for me. In fact, I hit every road bump that you can possibly hit in any business that I was in, for whatever reason. But that was my reality. And instead of playing the victim card, I just always had this relentless kind of drive to get it done, no matter what. So if I went left and they said no, then I went right. And if they said no, you have to go under, over, or around. Going back to the person's, I had to learn very on that, people will blame you for not being where they would like to be in their professional life, or the life or their professional career. And you can see it, and if you don't grow at the same pace, and you outgrow certain friendships, you outgrow certain partnerships, and it's okay. I mean, I don't think that one should ever, you should never think that, you should never be condescending in any kind of way, but you should never feel guilty for growing. And I'm always the kind of person that will try to bring as many people up as that is willing to be brought up. But I have no obligation to keep going back to ground zero if one doesn't want to show up.
I think we've had similar experiences within our family dynamics as well. And I think sometimes we don't appreciate that as family members, they show up and feel that they're entitled.
No question.
And so at the end of the day, what you essentially have happening is that because I am your family, we're supposed to make room
Yeah.
You're supposed to make room for me at the table. But, in terms of being successful, in terms of growing your business, whether the dead wood is family or non-family members, you've got to cut it.
Absolutely.
You've got to cut it.
That's an excellent segue, Sebas. So let's talk about dealing with criticism, right? I'm sure as you talk about this evolution of family or partners or partnerships, how do you deal with these criticisms? You now making you now an elite. You making all this money, whether
I'm
that's
an
on
elite.
gaming and the conversation.
I'm just Sebastian.
But my question is, how do you deal with that? Because obviously, with your level of success has come a lot of criticism, whether
Well-
it's taking care of or taking advantage of, or the perception that the gaming industry takes advantage of the underprivileged. How do you wear these challenges that you've gone through in your various phases?
If you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream. Everyone likes the ice cream man,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
That's
I like
not-
it. If you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream.
Yep.
When you've been through the journey that I've been through, and I think Martin Luther King said it back in the day about I think he was describing his journey, and I could not help but realize it's such a stark resemblance to mine, and it's the 4 Ds. When I was coming up, this is how I deal with criticism because I was criticized from the start. So so today
It'll make no difference.
it doesn't make a difference. But coming up, I experienced the 4 Ds in every capacity. The first D was I was dismissed. No, man, whatever. Who they doing this thing over here? Blah blah blah. Then I was discredited.
Yeah.
Right. And it was they doing that, but that ain't gonna make no sense. So he doing that, and that ain't gonna make no sense. And then I was demonized. He doing this, and they taking this, and they doing this, and they doing that, and then they tried to destroy. And whether that's using influence, political mechanisms, or whatever it was.
Can you repeat those 4 Ds for us again? I want people to take note of this.
Yep. Go ahead.
Dismissed, discredit, demonize, and destroy.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
So if you could survive those
4 Ds.
4 Ds
Onslaughts.
coming at you, criticism, I mean, it's just another person. You have to have that self-confidence. And I think it's a part of if you know that the type of person that you are, and you know that you mean well, and the things that you're doing is for positive and things like that. The only concern you have to have is about the people that mean the most to you. If somebody, if you take sick tomorrow, who's going to be in the hospital hallway?
Yeah.
That's the only persons that
you need to
you
spend
could
time on.
worry about taking criticism from.
Yeah.
Because I could tell you right. I mean, one, I can't take criticism from someone that I've never even had a conversation with.
Yeah.
They don't know me from Adam. They couldn't tell you anything about me, but they have the most to say about me. I mean, you can't lose no sleep over people like that. Then you become the problem of that
Absolutely.
case. So, the valid needs no validation.
Yeah.
You just take life, be kind, be respectable to others. Have deep conviction about an intention about what it is that you're trying to do and the objectives that you're trying to achieve by those works. And once you and your God has concluded that this is the direction you want to go in and it's for this type of outcome, line up the naysayers, and if they want to watch, get them a show.
Absolutely.
I'm so proud. Let me tell you the nuggets I just took away from this. The valid needs no validation.
That's correct.
If you want to be liked by everyone,
Sell ice
sell
cream.
ice cream. I think that's the name of his book. Okay?
I got you.
I think that's the name of his book. I'm only kidding. And lastly, what he didn't say, but what I sort of determined, is that you have to be tunnel vision when you want to be successful.
Absolutely.
You cannot be distracted.
Absolutely.
You cannot be distracted by the sideshow.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've got to have precision laser tunnel vision.
Yeah, you can't respond to everything. People will say things about that, and if we're being completely honest, we've said things about people probably
For sure.
we shouldn't said. So I try to not live my life in hypocrisy. I understand. ignorance is bliss. So people might speak what they don't know, or assume what they, we're a culture that fuels on gossip.
Yeah.
So we don't need to validate or
We
fact check.
fuel on gossip in the Bahamas.
Oh, yeah.
You believe that?
You know,
Oh my
Not
God!
this Bahamas.
you know.
No, he's absolutely correct.
all-
No,
all
I
we
think
have to
I
hear-
think it's about also, I mean, we say gossip, but let me tell you something. We have another saying that dog don't bark at park car.
Yeah.
If you ain't moving nowhere, ain't
Yeah.
nobody noticing you.
That's for sure.
But you know what? If you moving somewhere,
Everybody got something to talk about.
everybody got something to say.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to tell you, brother Bastian, keep moving upward. It's when we lose the ability to move, when we are no longer kinetic,
Absolutely.
that we become static.
That's a fact.
Then
Absolutely.
people are happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the point I'm making, Sebastian. One of the reasons why, when we started, I want to talk about what I call the foundational years of your journey.
Yeah.
Because people look and they see you as an executive, but I tell them you was a boy in the playground,
Yep.
always on the edge, trying to find a way to disrupt, to make a couple of dollars, because those are the lessons that people forget when they see the success. They think now, like Loretta say, you got people who just, cook for you, do all these wonderful things. And the reality is it couldn't be further from the truth.
I actually didn't see no one to his house beside him.
But the point I want to make, Sebastian, is as you've changed the system in terms of what you describe as economic empowerment, politics is next.
Right now, I'm focused on my work, and my work is to execute a 10-year plan that I built for myself that started a couple of years ago. Where I'm at in the 10-year plan, I prefer not to say, but it is an empowerment plan. It is consolidating the collective wisdom of my organizations, the success of various organizations, and we're building on giving economic access to almost everything that we've done. We started the Titan Fund back in 2019.
Yep.
Which was kind of the foundational rollout of this kind of long-term plan. And it gave Bahamians access to ownership in Island Luck. A lot of persons don't know that. And it has a couple of other instruments in there. And I can say, I'm happy to report that all of the investors have gotten double-digit returns. I'm talking in the 20th percentile returns from the inception of that fund.
We ain't invested that yet.
No, we ain't invested
We
that
need
yet.
to invest in that. I mean, that's the highest yield on anything I've ever heard.
Yeah, and it's been going for 5 years strong, and we're expanding that fund to now include properties. So every single real estate asset that our group of companies own will be placed in a fund. A portion of the shares will be placed in the fund. And we're going to take the landlording out of real estate ownership. We're going to give exposure to whatever industry or businesses that we're playing with, so that whether you have 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is you want to invest, you have participation in the things that we're doing.
Man, let me tell you something.
Congratulations.
If you're talking about congratulations, I think that's fantastic. I want every naysayer, I want everyone who thought that, Mr. Sebastian Bastian, Mr. Fox, and the Island Luck crew are only about enriching themselves. I want them to listen to this podcast, Franklin.
Yes.
I want them to listen to this podcast because, I am a strong advocate of building stronger Bahamians everywhere.
And stronger
And I didn't
entrepreneurs.
know this. And so I want everyone who has something that they are not fully aware of that they're speaking to today to listen to this, because this is very, very empowering, not just for their organization, but for a wider cross-section of Bahamians.
No question. Sebastian takes me into a wonderful segment. Own Talks, OWN. Let us learn a little bit more about your strategy. I know it was been a bit of a hiatus following the pandemic. I think you started maybe a year or two ago coming off the pandemic.
Yeah.
What does Own Design do? I know you've had several entrepreneurs who have benefited from grants.
Yeah, that OWN is kind of one of my favorite programs. We started OWN back in 2015. And OWN was designed to kind of bridge the gap from an entrepreneur's wants, needs, and really kind of achieving that through our grant funding, our mentorship, and also our ability to help them get integrated into corporate Bahamas through relationships, etc., depending
Like
on
you
what
need
the
to partner with
business
SBDC.
is to do. We've started over 60 plus successful businesses, so investing over $3 million into those businesses across the years that own what was established. We don't take any equity or anything into the company. It's just, you submit.
Is it like a Shark Tank?
It's similar. You don't have to pitch to a
You don't
live
have to
audience.
pitch?
You just so OWN started off as a grant funding program. It's now evolved into grant funding, and we have an OWN Talks series.
Yep.
And what that's designed to do is, not every entrepreneur needs funding. Majority of them do.
Needs mentorship.
But a lot of entrepreneurs needs mentorship, needs access to persons that have done it and maybe can get some advice or some collaboration, etc. So we've brought world-renowned names. You mentioned Shark Tank. We've had 3 of the panelists from Shark Tank speak at OWN. We have Kevin O'Leary, we had Damon John, and then we had the other Kevin that was all a part of the Shark Tank, and that's free. We toggle between Bahama and Atlantis. It happens every year. It's going to be in August of this year.
I'm going to make sure you invite me to that, because I think SBDC can take away some things, and that's the government run.
He needs to invite you. You can't invite yourself. You need to make sure he invites you.
Well, I think I need to make sure I ask that I be invited then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But no, I think that this is so important, and I'm glad that you mentioned this, Franklin, because once again, like me, the audience is probably learning a lot about how they can become more empowered Bahamians.
No question.
We were talking offset about how we had populated the spaces for the professionals. We populated the spaces, that were previously being held by, other demographics, whatever. But what we have not done successfully is told people, you can be your own boss.
Absolutely.
You can create your own businesses. And there are avenues such as OWN Talks that is going to help to enable you. And another important thing that he said there, which I think a lot of people that are going off into wanting to pursue their own business, they always think they need a lot of money.
That's for sure.
Because they don't understand that you need to have a proper business plan. Then, of course, you've got to apply it. What's that saying you have on your wall?
Ideas are meaningless without execution.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you could start small. You don't have to have a whole gang of money. You could turn these friendships into partnerships.
Absolutely.
Pool your resources, make some sacrifice, apply some discipline. And I think, you just have to make sure that your idea ticks the 4 boxes. If you ask yourself, what problem am I solving? Who is my customer? How much are they willing to pay? And what is the demand for my product or service? If you apply those 4 questions to anything that you're thinking about, you have to give those honest answers. And if they tick all 4 boxes, most likely you have a good business idea.
Absolutely.
If you struggle to answer any of those 4 questions, there are some red flags in how you should approach that.
Very good points. Thank you.
So Sebas, as you know, you like me, you are a girl dad. In fact, you got 2 more than me.
Yes.
How has that impacted your life as an entrepreneur, as a human being?
Boy, where do I start? Interestingly, I do have 3 daughters, and I had a daughter at multiple checkpoints of my life. My first daughter, I was 22. Wow. My second daughter, I was 31, and my third daughter, I was 41. So I had a child every decade.
Jeez.
And what's interesting about the spacing of those kids is that each of those times I was a different Sebas. I was 22 when my first daughter was born. You could imagine, I was entrepreneurial, and, I had already started a successful business at that particular time. But obviously I was still 22. So, my ability I could have provided, which, most people might have a challenge with providing if they had a child at 22. So I didn't have that issue. But I also probably wasn't as the most mature
No, you were still growing up yourself.
myself. So, fortunately, I was still able to navigate and do the best, because at least what I had going for me, even though I had no clue what I should be doing, I had a reference of how I was raised.
Yeah.
So all I basically did was, even though, I didn't grow up in a home with my father was always in my life. So I was able to apply that principles to it, and do the best I can at that time. When I had my second child, obviously I was 30. I was a lot more mature, but I also was, I think I was at a pivotal point in my success as well. So I lived my 20s and my 30s, because in my 20s, I was working, I was building an empire, I was doing a lot of things. So again, just like when I was younger and I couldn't go to Mardi Gras and Red Cross Fair and all that kind of stuff, in my 20s, I had fun, but there was still a lot of discipline and sacrifice that I would have made as well. So, I was always working and working on something. So, in my 30s, and it was an interesting part, because though I was older, I probably still wasn't as fatherly mature as I was supposed to be. Again, a great provider, was always there for the moments that matter. But, I think it would feel like you're ticking a box. Of course, you're going to go to the school recital. You're going to go to sports day. I did all that stuff. I was always there. But, not being selfless and carving out time, which moves to, my latter part. When I turned, I think, about 35, 36, I think that's when it started to kind of change a bit. And I remember being away. It was summer, and I was in Europe doing my normal European thing. And I couldn't help but realize that I was making all of these special memories with friends, but I wasn't making those with my people that matter to me the most, my daughters.
Yeah.
So I in grand Bahamian fashion, I kicked the can down the road. I think I had that first breath of consciousness at 37, and then 38, you did nothing about it. 39 comes, and you're staring 40 in the air, and there's something about 40.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I turned 40, it's like a light switch.
Yeah.
Right.
But fortunately, I didn't have to wait until I was 40, and I just put my foot down. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna create a hack, because I create hacks for businesses. I'm very disciplined on the business side of it, so I need to take that same discipline.
That's right.
And apply that to the family side.
Your family
of it, right?
life.
So it takes being honest with yourself. You could pretend, you can put on a show, but truthfully, you know what it is and what it isn't. So I created a hack. Well, I kind of still want to go out and have a good time and having a good time in the summer, and kids just don't match sometimes. So I just applied this hack. I think it was not 38. So I said, I'm going to take them for the first week, and then I'm going to do what I previously done for the second week.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
So we did that.
Awesome.
39, took them for the first 2 weeks, and then I'll do what I do for the last week. Now we go for the whole summer. Now they're there for 25 days, and then I spend the next 5 days doing what I prefer to do. So, and that hack is not just I apply to the vacation aspect of it. It's just every day. I mean, I try to talk to them every day. I spend way more time than I did with them probably in my younger 30s than I do now. So the last kind of, call it 6-7 years, it's just kind of been an about turn. And I think it's you when you reach a certain level of success, you start to gauge and you change the barometer and how you measure success. So
and you realize that those intangibles are so important.
Absolutely.
The intangibles such as the relationship with your daughters and your really close family loved ones.
Absolutely.
And so I love that. I absolutely love that. That is that, and I'm glad you actually came to the realization, because truly there are people that are still highly successful
And don't quite come to that.
and do not come to that, because they still think that just providing the material things that the success brings is going to give fulfillment, not just to themselves but to their
for family.
offspring.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're integrating the most intangible but most important component, which is your love and your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, when we go on to the pearly gates or wherever it is beyond death, um, we must leave behind more than just assets.
Yep.
We have to leave an example. You asked the question about mentorship, and I told you about how I was able to do the best that I could based on how I was brought up with my father in my 20s. That was based on the example that he left for me. So imagine if I take my example and leave it for them. I mean, we talk about legacy and generational wealth a lot of times, but we also have to look at generational principles,
Yep.
generational ideologies.
Yep.
That pass down as well, just like assets and businesses do,
Without question.
and that's very important. I think I had to take the same discipline and approach with health. As entrepreneurs and successful people, it's all in our head.
Yeah.
You're only as busy as you allow yourself to be. And I started from I was 7, and I started entrepreneurship when I was 7. At 43, if I don't have 40 minutes to work out, or 26 days to go on a vacation with my kids, or if I don't have that type of time, I failed.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, I ain't working 19 hours in a day, because if I have to work 18 hours a day with 2,000 employees, I was an idiot.
Yeah.
And I don't regard myself as an idiot. So it goes back to the right people, because your most valuable asset is going to be time. And I think a lot more people need to focus on not the dollar value. And it's easy to say because you're in a different reality than most. But I think if people just focus on not how do I make more money, how do I do things that give me more time, and
That's
then we
right.
can truly live, right?
That's right.
Because
Don't wait to live. Don't wait to live.
Don't wait to live. Money without time, it's nothing at all.
Absolutely. It's like time without money.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I really, really appreciate that. And I'm going to let you all, as younger persons, you've shared a lot. I think that young people tuning into this program, and not so young people, will not only gain a different perspective on Mr. Sebas Bastian Franklin, but they will also get a greater introspect, if you will, as to how successful people manage their lives. And we must manage our lives.
No question. Or it'll certainly manage us.
Yeah.
So, Sebas, my concluding question, or His Excellency. It's 2024.
Yeah.
It's 2064.
Mhm.
What does Sebas' life and legacy look like?
My legacy, how I'd like my legacy to look, and what I'm working on, how my legacy to look, is not being able to point at specifically what I have done, but what you can point at that I've allowed others to do. So when you drive by this business or this building, it's like, oh, that's Sebas' old building, or that's something like that. Well, that's that company Sebas helped start it. This is this organization that he formulated. So it's about using the position, influence, and resources that I have to just genuinely impact the lives of others. And it's good to be able to have these kind of conversations, not vying for any political spots and things like that, because
Absolutely.
most times you can't tell.
Are you trying to throw a rock at me?
No, absolutely not. I leave the politics
Oh,
to
because I ain't in
politicians.
politics no more, you know.
I know. We can see June face. June face.
That's a
You know,
low one. Oh my
we can
God.
see June face. You know.
We need some levity in here.
You
We
know.
appreciate that.
You
No,
know,
we love the fact.
the
We
red
love
team has always been a very interesting party to watch when it comes
we
down.
love your sense of humor,
Yes,
man.
yes, yes.
Thank you so much. I want people to see that side of you too.
For sure, for sure, for sure. No, that's great, Sebas. I think, legacy is one of the things I certainly think that obviously coming from our family is the one thing I keep asking myself is what is going to be my legacy? And
Mhm.
all that you've already done, and I know you ain't finished, you probably feel like you're just starting.
Hmm.
I think your legacy is certainly going to be around entrepreneurship, but I want our audience to leave recognizing that while God blessed you with certain gifts,
Mhm.
it was the opposition, it was the suspensions, it was all the
It was the 4Ds.
40s, all the negative things that often happen in life is actually what catapults us to some of the best things that happen
Absolutely.
in our lives. And so I want to encourage the young man or the young lady who's watching this podcast to recognize that, listen, things may feel difficult today, but that's the beginning of the blessing.
No, but when you're comfortable, you don't want, you have to be uncomfortable to be successful.
But a lot of us want it quick, instant, and without pain. And the reality is success don't come like that,
No,
right? And that's the
doesn't.
point I want, because what people often see is they see the softness of myself or Sebas in terms of what we get to do. But there's a whole other side, Lauren. I'm so glad y'all invite me to be a guest, and I could only be the host because I don't want to tell people my story. But Sebas has touched on so many things
Oh, yes,
that
indeed.
to me resonated with me and my own journey of success, and I'm
Indeed.
sure for you as
And
well.
we truly appreciate everything that he's allowed himself to open up and share, because I'm sure that in many people's minds, he's considered to be an enigma.
Absolutely.
As long as people can't reach you, can't touch you, can't see you, they think, you're untouchable.
That's right.
But, I'm so glad he's taken this opportunity to come here and to really peel the skins back so that people can see the real person, can see that there's a whole lot of work, there's whole lot of equity, blood, sweat, tears, and failures along the way to the road to success.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, Sebastian, I want to thank you for being on this episode of the Legacy Podcast.
Thank you.
I think this has been a tremendous conversation. I hope our guests found, so much nuggets. I mean, I could go through so many of them that you've shared with us today. But before we wrap up this show, Loretta, we got to thank the Butler Legacy Foundation, of course, and the Echo Gallery here at Bahama, such a wonderful venue for allowing us to be a sponsor and to make this production happen.
I think we're always so grateful to be able to use this space. But just in closing, for our international audience, one of the things we did not do was actually speak to the various aspects of Mr. Sebas's success. So in order for them to have an even greater appreciation, it would be good to go on his social platforms and see what it is that he does, get a perspective. I mean, we never asked him for a dollar value. It would be too crass, but he is a highly successful person.
Hands down.
And we thank him very much for being here and joining us at Bahar and Echo Gallery. And we're glad that this highly successful man has been able to come, that Baharmar's spaces, this is a space he doesn't normally come to. So thank you, Baharmar. We got Mr. Sebas Bastian here to come and share this, and to the Butler Legacy Foundation for sponsoring this show today, Franklin. We're very, very grateful. Thank you for being a wonderful guest, Mr. Bastian, Ambassador Bastian. We thank you very much. We want to give you all of your accolades. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. And I would have been here even if this was 4th Street to Grove. So thank you for having me. I think conversations like this go a very long way. There's a lot of collective stories and collective wisdom just amongst us three alone. And the more stories and things that we can tell, perspectives, ideas, sometimes it only takes one thing that just clicks in someone's mind that can change the trajectory of, kind of where they were going and they can find themselves in a much better place. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much.
Yep. And in concluding, we just want to thank all of those who are watching this podcast. Please continue to follow us on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We really want to focus on building legacies and entrepreneurship. And we hope you found this episode to be one that gives you hope and encourages you to build your legacy.
Thank you.